Hey guys, tightrope here, and today we're taking a look at the new patch for Company of Heroes 3, which is named Brass Leopard 1.1.5. Now unfortunately there are very few balance changes in this patch, mainly just to the planes and strafes and stuff, so that's a little bit unfortunate. The last patch I think was late April, and they mentioned there are going to be balance changes coming in July, but there's going to be close to 3 months between balance patches when the game only just came out in February, so it's a long wait for those of us who are still playing the game, who, we want some more balance changes, and it would be nice if they could maybe have squeezed in like a quarter of the balance changes that they planned for that patch into this patch to try and freshen up a bit more. But there's still quite a lot of changes on offer in this patch, so let's take a look at them. First off, we have a new map called Canatia Crossing, which is a 3v3 bridge map. This is exclusively for skirmish, custom games, and co-op versus AI modes. I still remember in Company of Heroes 2, Sittard Summer ended up getting added to auto match rotation for a while there, and I actually played a few 3v3s on that map. And, I had some fun games on it, honestly, part of auto match. But yeah, you can't really add it to Company of Heroes 3 with the map rotation because, first off, the map pool is so small, and you can't veto it either. So, I could maybe see it added to the auto match rotation if you want to sign yourself up for that kind of gameplay. But yeah, without a veto system, not really a good idea. So, it's good for the comp stompers. They get a new map. So we're taking a look at the new 3v3 map, Canatia Crossing. This is really only suitable for comp stomps because, as you can see, it's got 4 VPs, 2 on each side. So that can cause like pure stalemate situations. Wouldn't really be possible to edit auto match with that kind of VP layout. Probably need like an extra one, maybe in the center over here. Something to break through a stalemate. But overall, a very pretty map. You can see there are a lot of buildings all over this map. Very, very nice detail. And look at this area through the center with these 2 rivers. Very, very pretty. You can zoom out a bit more. This is with the zoom mod. You can see the map more of a distance. Got a nice rail bridge on this side as well. It's overall a very pretty map. And like, I don't know if it's the lighting settings or the atmospheric settings, but overall I think it's very, it looks really good. Units on the map look good as well. So maybe these atmospheric settings could be applied to some more maps. But yeah, that's a brief look at Canatia Crossing. For comp stomps only. Gameplay changes. First off, audio. British Forces Warcry ability. All players will now hear a trench whistle followed by a crowd swell indicating the ability has been activated. So maybe previously only you, the player who activated it, got to hear this. Now everybody gets to hear it. Certainly I remember testing this ability and remembering that trench whistle, which I actually have. That was one of the objects that we got for those COH3 boxes before launch. So I've got that, and it's pretty loud. Another nice change here, camera. The camera now allows players to zoom out an additional 5 meters using the scroll wheel, increasing the overall zoom level. Having a look at the new zoom level in COH3. So here we are at the default zoom, double backspace at the default zoom. And go 1 scroll wheel out, and then kind of like maybe like a half extra tick. So it's 1 out, then maybe like, 1 further back. It seems like it only goes halfway. So I was expecting just to get the 1 tick, but it's kind of like 1.5 steps out overall. So that's what it looks like now at the default zoom level. Remember that there is dynamic zoom. So as you can see, as the camera is above like this elevated area, the camera does rise and fall as the ground does. That's one of the features of Company of Heroes 3. To try and, they wanted to make elevation more of a feature. So now, yeah, this is the default zoom. Do you have to worry in Company of Heroes 3, like, that maybe you'll lose track of animations and stuff when you start to zoom out quite a lot? Like, can you still see your men, or the enemy's men, winding up for grenades, or doing these little animations? Are you still going to be able to notice that from the further levels of zoom? That's something you have to consider. But yeah, 1.5 extra steps of zoom out for all of those people who have been asking for that. since the game came out. Event queues have received a major overhaul, which is really nice because I actually turned them off. I thought they were so annoying. So now they are aligned over the top of the mini-map. Their priority has been adjusted, so the less important queues do not take position over the more relevant ones. So, you know, things like squads dead, units suppressed, those kind of high priority ones are going to stay in position, not get pushed off by enemy spotted kind of queues. The queues now allow players to click and select units behind them. That's really nice. They are now limited to how many can display on the screen at one time. I think previously maybe you could have about 5 before they would get shuffled off the top of the screen. So now there's a hard cap on the number of them. The background transparency has been reduced to improve readability, and the event queue's lifetime on screen will adapt based on player interaction. So basically, if you don't click on them at all, they'll stay on the screen for the same amount of time. But if you click on them, then they'll disappear 5 seconds faster. So we're taking a look at the new event queue system, and as you can see, their positioning has been relocated. They're now over here instead of kind of tucked away in the corner, above where like the call-ins will be for like Africa Corps and whatnot. And you can see the red one down the bottom. I'm going to try bring that in. So these ones are in... Okay, I thought the red ones would stay in the bottom position. It's interesting. Enemy spotted. So I'm trying to get these enemy spotted queues. It looks like the enemy spotted queues are kind of being shoved off the field. So maybe there's a maximum of 3 queues showing, and these enemy spotted queues are not showing up. So it's just the high priority ones, which is infantry in danger and infantry attacked. And enemy spotted are just completely hidden. So my guys are dead. Also, if you click on this stuff, they will disappear 5 seconds faster, opening up opportunities for other queues to show. And should be able to select my units underneath this.
We've lost a scout squad.
Yep. So previously, if you tried to click on a unit like this, you wouldn't be able to select underneath the event queue box, which is nice because, you know, you couldn't click on this to go to that event queue. You have to click on this in the corner. So that's a good change. So overall, some nice changes. How about this? So one change I would still like to see to the event queues is that when clicking on them from the tactical map, like you can see the camera repositions, but it doesn't exit you from the tactical map. So maybe one click could cause a relocation of the camera, and then double click would exit the tactical map on that point as well. That's a change I'd still like to see to the event list. And one other feature I'm still hoping that will add to the event queue list as well is the ability to customize what event queues show up. So personally, as a high tactical map user, I'm not really that interested in, you know, units spotted. Typically I'll see that quite often on this. And even like infantry attacked and infantry in danger, typically I don't really need that. But what I do want is like mine spotted. You know, it's something that I can quite easily overlook. Is, you know, when my sweeper spots a mine, I can quite easily miss that if I don't have an event queue for it. So hopefully they'll still add that in the future, the ability to customize what event queues show up. They did mention they were looking into that in the preview video for this patch. There have been a couple tweaks to the maps Gazala Landing Ground and Mignano Gap, and here are the big changes to planes. The intent of the changes to airplanes and loiters is to deliver more believable looking visuals, that's good, along with better responsiveness and game feel. When a player clicks, it is essential that the feedback on the ability be more immediate. As always, we are looking into new ways to bring you an immersive experience, so we've adjusted the visuals and deformation of airplane crashes, dives and projectile speeds. I like the sound of that. So they've standardized airplane arrival times, utility-based smoke and recon runs 3 seconds, strafing runs 5 seconds, bombing runs 7 seconds. That seems sensible. Airplanes now start their dives earlier to allow for a less aggressive angle. I guess this is to avoid those kind of comical like plane diving situations we saw sometimes. Planes speed increase while loitering from 36 to 72. Again, I guess this is to improve the visuals to make them look more realistic. I do worry that with this increased speed, maybe anti-air units will have a harder time tracking and shooting down loiters. Not sure about that. Plane turn angles are increased from 25 degrees to 60 degrees, I believe, to make the planes look more realistic. And then plane crashes have a new effect and maybe look cooler. The plane debris is going to last longer when they crash. Adjusted airplanes doing dives only to drop the projectile when at a distance from the target as opposed to only when on top of the target. So I believe what this means is, previously the plane would kind of come down when it was above the target, and then the bomb would just drop straight down on top of the target. But now the plane's going to be coming in, it'll drop the bombs, and then they'll kind of like fall down onto the target. So yeah, maybe a more realistic effect will change things a little bit. Like if you're trying to do a bombing strike behind a building, now the bombs will probably collide into the building as opposed to dropping straight down on top of the unit. But that's probably, fine. I believe in the preview to this patch, the devs mentioned that they wanted that kind of gameplay to be possible, that you could kind of hide units behind buildings. They thought that was a good idea, and I think that's probably fine. Adjusted plane flares to match the center of the ability reticule. That's good. Adjusted the reticule colors to match the proper intention of the ability. Green for utility and red for damage. That's a sensible change. Planes performing paradrop abilities are now invincible. I believe they made this change because sometimes anti-air would shoot down the planes even if you dropped them in your base in team games before you could like drop your units in. So this would make units like commandos completely unusable in team game scenarios. So that's the change they made. I still would like to see units as they're pad dropping down to be possible to shoot at, kind of like they were in Company of Heroes 2. But I can see what they're trying to do here, trying to make these abilities actually possible to use in team games where anti-air can be quite pervasive. On top of that, we've got some weapon and projectile changes. The projectile speeds have been increased by 2 to 3 times. Okay. The bombs are now 50% damage bonus, I believe this is, against buildings and emplacements. Adjusted deformation to better match the area of effect of some explosions. Hopefully that makes them look better. Adjusted strafing runs to have an area of effect of 45 meters of length. Okay. And then strafing runs cover an area within 1 second as opposed to 3 seconds. So strafing runs are probably going to be coming in much faster. We've got some loiter changes. Loiters will no longer acquire new targets in base sectors, probably better explained in-game. Loiters now display a ground indicator that reflects the target acquisition area. This is well overdue. You had this in Company of Heroes 2. This is basically the circle on the ground, which shows you where the edge of the targeting zone is. Thank God they added it finally. You don't have to do like guesswork based on the minimap anymore. Loiters now display an indicator on top of the unit they are targeting. That's an interesting change. Loiters now properly display the time left for the ability to end. That's also quite interesting. And loiters now take longer time in between passes. I think some situations in COH3, you could get 5 passes off if the planes just had constantly targets like best possible situations. Whereas in Company of Heroes 2, it was typically only possible to get 3 off in the best case scenario. So I imagine they've made changes to bring them more in line with the previous games. The Africa Corps Stuka dive bomb is having a massive cost reduction from 250 to 150. I think that's a good idea. The Wehrmacht fragmentation bombs now have 6 bombs instead of 4, but it seems like maybe they dropped over 2 planes. Interesting. Planes performing marked target will now leave the field if the target is destroyed. That's kind of cool. Loiter planes no longer leave the field preemptively, which was causing instances where instead of 2 planes loitering, there were only 1. So does that mean that the planes will just continue loitering the entire time of the ability's duration? Previously, if the planes didn't lock onto a target, at least in COH2, they would eventually just time out and fly off the field before, the circle would still be on the ground, indicating the ability was running. But yeah, if they didn't lock onto a target during a certain time window, they would time out and fly off the field. Makes it sound like that's not going to happen anymore. And then there are various audio fixes for planes. Nice. So first look at the revised planes. We're going to look at the Africa Corps strafing run from the Italian Combined Arms ability. Previously, this would take around 6.5 seconds to arrive, regardless of direction on this side of the map.
JU-87, enter in the fray. Striping target, descending.
So we'll have a look, see how it compares. You see now on the mini-map, the indicated zone. Ooh. Okay, that is way stronger than it used to be as well. Wow. Reinforce that back up to full and bring it in from the opposite side. See how long that takes, see if there's any difference. Yeah, these are much stronger than they used to be as well. Interesting. So that was interesting seeing the before and after of that strafe. Unfortunately, I don't have before and afters for any of the rest of these type of planes. But yeah, overall, you know, about a second faster coming in than previously. Way more damaging. And the planes were way louder. Maybe a little bit too loud, honestly. But we'll see how we go for the rest of them. I was also timing it based on me activating the ability and the ability coming in. It said 5 seconds between the flares coming down and the ability coming in. So probably accurate for that. But yeah, for these utility abilities, it says it's supposed to be 3 seconds. So let's see if that's the case. Not sure about that one. Carpet bombing run. We're going to try this one next. This bombing run's supposed to be 7 seconds. I'm not sure if it applies to carpet bombing run or if it's just like the dive bomb from US Forces. So we'll try them both. So we'll try the carpet bombing run here. Try target it right on the edge of this.
Standard procedure. Hit the
flares are down. You see the indicator in the mini-map showing the targeted zone.
Don't give them a chance to fire back.
That's a noisy one, and yeah, you can see the difference now, the terrain deformation. I believe these kind of craters did not used to appear after attacks like this, and it looks like the craters are providing light cover. So that's good. You know, I do think terrain deformation was missing quite a lot from Company of Heroes 3. You know, back in the old days of COH2, it would be the face of the moon, it would look like, after a lot of artillery, but it was really missing from COH3. But now we're getting it, at least on some of these big bombing runs, so that's nice to see. As far as the craters themselves, how do they look? Yeah, I mean, there's definite deformation. It's not just like a picture. You can actually see where we're going below the terrain, which is, yeah, nice little touch there with the craters. So now we'll try out the Air Support Center upgrades from US Forces, see if they got similar treatment. So we'll try the dive bomb first off.
P-47 ready to ruin Jerry's day.
See if we can time the flares on this one. So you saw the trajectory of the bombs there. They kind of floated like downwards. They kind of curved down. So that was one of the changes visually to how bombs land. And then we've got the crater left behind afterwards. Yeah, definitely an improvement. And now I'm going to upgrade the double sortie upgrade. So this gives me 2 planes, and I'm going to use the strafing run on this. See if it's similar in power level to the Africa Corps strafe we saw earlier. Similar, not quite as lethal, but similar. This does cost, I think, half the munitions, and this is before you get the upgrade, which makes it even cheaper as well. So maybe this is going to make the Air Support Center a lot more appealing for US Forces now with all of these plane changes. I could definitely see, especially in team games, these being very, very popular. Taking a look at the loiter changes. I'm going to target this loiter at the edge of the enemy's base. And after the changes, the tank inside the base should no longer be targeted. On top of that, now you can see the edge of the circle. And it's in a blue line. That's kind of cool. I guess it would be red if it was enemy, blue if it's yours. Which was different to Company of Heroes 2. will just be redlined for both friendly and enemy. So it's a nice little change. Zoom out. Have a look at the planes as well. I think they have an increased rotation rate. We've got a zoom mod on. And they do seem to be going around faster than they used to. Also mentioned that they'll stay in the map, but as far as I can see, I thought it would be like when they're on the edge of the sectors that's still shown on the mini-map, that they would still be visible here, but they still disappear off the map on the edges. I thought that that was what got changed, but no, they still disappear off the sides of the map. But yeah, so you'll be safer inside your base than you used to be against loiters, though, you know, if you're backing in and the planes lock onto you as you're driving into your base, the planes will still be able to hit you inside of your base. Alright, we're going to activate the loiters. A few more changes. And they mentioned there's an indicator showing what they're targeting. So you can see that symbol above the Panzer IV. It indicates that the planes are targeting that particular tank. So I was expecting kind of like a rectangle, like the Strafe are that would appear maybe on the mini-map, showing what's getting targeted, but that's the indicator they've chosen. And they also mentioned, well, I guess we'll see what the planes lock onto next. Oh. Subsequent, this vehicle did not get the indicator. See if I try to drive it out of the zone. Okay, did on the second pass. So there's still a little bit of work to do there. Maybe not always the indicator's going to show up. Interesting to see as well. They still came through for 4 passes. I was expecting the delay in the loiters to knock it down to 3, but it's still 4. I think maybe in the past you could squeeze out 5 attack passes from the loiter's duration. So maybe it slowed down a bit, but still 4 instead of 3 like we had from the attack planes in COH2. And as you can see, these loiters are actually leaving craters behind as well, which I don't think as deep as the bombing planes that we saw earlier. And now taking a look at the fragmentation bombs. This is in the Luftwaffe battle group for Wehrmacht. These got buffed, I believe, come in 2 planes and more damage. You can see they've got 2 actually, so it's side by side. So they cover a much wider area now. That's how it is. I thought it might be like 1 plane and then another plane in the same line, but it's a much wider strike. You could probably increase and change the targeting symbol for that, because that, I think, was quite misleading. Felt like, well, we'll have a look at it again, I guess. But I'm targeting it on this area, but there's like another one to the south. So the targeting system for this is, I think, could do with some adjustment. Also, it looks like this causes some mild deformation. I wonder if this provides cover. Looks like it does afterwards. So let's look at the new frag bombs. Seem to be pretty effective, but yeah, they could do with a rework on the targeting indicator. So I want to see how the path of the bombs falling now impacts trying to target units behind a building. So we've got a mortar kind of hidden behind this building, similar to what you'd see usually on this map. I'm going to try hit it with a P-47 dive bomb. See what kind of damage it takes. Okay, so it looks like in this particular case, such a big amount of damage from the bomb killed it anyway, so might not be too much of a problem. Player names. Now you can finally see who's who in your team games, which is well overdue. Should have launched with this function in. But they've also added a feature where you can permanently have the players' names displayed. I don't think many players will use it, but you know, it's nice to have. They've also made some tweaks to unique team and player colors. So finally, we've got player names. You can see I've got my unit selected here, and there's my name and my color. There's my teammates, their color, and the enemies in their color. You can also press Control to show who belongs to what. You know, if if you're getting a bit confused. Maybe if you have team colors on and you just want to see who's who instead of unique colors. And you can also change this to be permanently on if you go to gameplay, always show player names, and switch this to on, which I probably wouldn't recommend, but then it'll always be on. Looks like it will shift your unit's card around a little bit, so if you rely on clicking this card, it might be a little bit undesirable. They made some changes to the player list. All battle groups from each player's loadout will now be visible in the player list. It will no longer be possible to check which battle groups other players have picked. So I think it would be kind of nice to still be able to see which battle groups your teammates have picked, and I think they mentioned they're going to try work towards implementing that functionality. But yeah, it was kind of quite cheesy where you could just open the playlist and see what battle group your enemy had picked. There was like no guesswork involved. You could like counter your opponent before they'd even fielded anything. In some regards though, it was actually kind of nice because oftentimes, you know, there'll be like a call-in vehicle that your opponent is going for, and yeah, it'll just kind of arrive quite early on. They won't have selected anything else from the early stages of the battle group or used it, so you won't have any tells that that call-in vehicle is coming. And so it'll allow you to kind of counter that call-in vehicle before it arrived, which, you know, can sometimes be kind of important. So yeah, I think it's largely for the better, but could open up some problems with the balance. Having a look at the playlist changes, you can see I've selected the airborne battle group, but if I go to the playlist, you can still see that all of my battle groups show here. So there's no tells as to which battle group I've selected, and neither for my enemies or my teammates. As I said, I think it would be nice if you could see your teammates, especially for random teams. I think that can help with coordination a bit, but you know, hopefully they'll work on that and address that eventually. But yeah, you'll probably need this information down the line when they eventually add new battle groups, so you can kind of see which options they had, at least especially if you like missed it during the load screen or something. So this definitely does serve a function, but quite a limited one at this stage. They've added a bunch of new sound effects and tweaked existing ones, which is nice because I think sound is one area where Company COH3 still needs to improve quite a bit. Let's have a listen to the new sound effect for the Paratrooper carbine.
Enemy infantry! Say hello, boys!
So let's have a listen to the M3. They mentioned there were some changes to its audio before and after upgrade, so we'll get a baseline reading of how it sounds before. And now with the 75mm upgrade.
Relocate the big wheel.
Yeah, it sounds like it's a little bit slower, like winding up, maybe a little bit deeper of a tone. Try the half track. I think that's got the same sound as the other one.
Boys. Repositioning quad bearer.
Do it without the turn. Is that unique as well? Either way, it's a pretty minor change to the engine tone. Maybe, you know, like a slight switch indicating that these vehicles are now slower to accelerate because they've got more weight in them. Maybe that's the tone they're trying to achieve. So yeah, there we go. Slight change. And here's another sound effect that's different. The M1919. In this case, we've got the captain wielding it, but I believe this applies to paratroopers or the team weapon. Quite a meaty tone to it now, isn't it? So another sound change. We've got an M1AT gun against an 8-rad, long range. So a little bit different on the firing, but a huge difference on the connection. Seems to be even louder when it hits the ground compared to hits the 8-rod itself. 8-rod is invulnerable at the moment. The middle of the map. And from the far side. Don't think I can really hear it at all from this far side of the map. It's about here where I can start to hear it. So yeah, I think that's one of the main differences between Company of Heroes 2 and Company of Heroes 3. On the far side of a 1v1 map, you would faintly be able to hear this kind of engagement, an anti-tank gun shooting at a Puma, and I'll splice in some edits so you can confirm that. So that's one thing I'd still like to see addressed in the audio system. I feel like quite often when I'm casting a game, it doesn't happen too much when I'm playing because I constantly have the tactical map open, I can see stuff happening. But when I'm casting a game, I'm not as active on the tactical map, I'll quite often miss engagements on the other side of the map because it feels like the decay of sound with distance is much higher in Company of Heroes 3 than it was in Company of Heroes 2. So it's harder to hear stuff that's happening further away or away from the camera's focus, and maybe conversely as well, sound effects that are happening directly on screen in front of you are proportionately very loud as well. So maybe that's the kind of direction I'd like to see the sound head in. A bit more, ambient sound from further away in the battlefield, and maybe a bit less massive volume spikes on, combat on screen. They've also changed some things about the voiceovers for anti-tank guns and mortars when they get decrewed. Now you get a voiceover warning, which is nice. And squads garrisoned inside buildings now give a voiceover warning when the building is at risk of being destroyed. So this is nice, when the building's getting very low on health. Now you'll get a shout out from your squads. Hey, we need to get out of here. Nice for some preservation. So to test out this new audio cue, I've made this squad invulnerable. I'm going to chuck them inside this building, which is full health. And then I have this Panzer IV shoot at the building and see exactly what health threshold the low building health warning kicks in. So let's see how it goes. Okay, there it is. Get out now. So maybe it's like under quarter health of the building remaining.
We've lost a squad of riflemen at the front.
Something like that. Maybe like 20% at that health threshold. The squad will yell, get out now. They made a few art changes here, including this comical one at the top. Africa Corps Panzer Grenadiers now understand how boots work. Therefore, their legs no longer clip through their boots. It's leg day. Nice to see they've got a sense of humor about these kind of things. A few of the most important gameplay fixes. They fixed an issue where the game was not updating the player correctly when an enemy neutralized one of the player's team-controlled sectors and still showing the neutralized territory as player owned. So it's a nice change for the team game players. They've tweaked the AI, so now the AI will be able to use directional targeted abilities such as the German Vesper creeping barrage. And I imagine this would probably apply to these like Strafe airstrikes, hopefully. So a nice tweak to the AI there. And fixed several instances of overly zealous infantry running towards the enemy when retreating. Hadn't seen this too often, but yeah, occasionally, one man would kind of run like, almost be like 10, 15 range towards the enemy before retreating. So nice to see that that's being improved. Loiter planes no longer disappear off map while performing abilities. That's good. Makes it easier to see what's going on there. And updated line of sight generated by capture points to be more consistent with past COH games. Another good change here. I think in COH3, the circles used to be much, much larger around the capture flags. So they've reduced them a bit, I believe. Here are a couple before and after shots of the vision around the flag. Noticeably smaller, but not by a huge amount. I still think maybe a touch larger than they were in COH2. They've changed quite a few things related to maps, mainly fixing up different objects on the maps and tweaking a few things here or there visually. They've made some improvements to the mod tools and bug fixes. Not a lot here, if I'm honest. I was really hoping that this patch would be able to see what's inside the state trees. But to my understanding, that's not what we're getting here. So yeah, what I want to see is, at the moment, all these properties for like various abilities, like veterancy bonuses, activatable abilities, like the actual numbers, percentages, what the abilities do, are hidden in the mod tools. We can't see that currently, which is why we don't have guides for that kind of stuff. So, if it was like plus 20% accuracy, we don't know. That's hidden away at the moment. So I was really hoping that in this patch we would get access to see that kind of stuff. Unfortunately, not the case. They've made some performance tweaks here, probably the most important of which, reduced memory increases across missions. So maybe there was a bit of a memory leak previously. Good to see that they're on top of that kind of stuff, because I think one of the real highlights of COH3 is how well it performs. They've also made quite a few changes to single player and campaigns, like a huge number of bug fixes, as you can see here. Lots to the Italian dynamic campaign, which is really nice to see that they haven't just abandoned these campaigns completely. As far as I could see, there were no increases in difficulty to the AI. Like maybe this campaign is at a state now where, like, bug-wise, I'd be happy to play it. But for a more veteran player like myself, I'm still hoping for like a difficulty increase before I dive into the Italian dynamic campaign. So I'm still kind of holding out for that. But yeah, very good to see that they're still improving the single player and campaign experience. They've also made some changes to the North African campaign. Not as many as the Italian, but I imagine it had less bugs to start with. Now, one of the biggest changes hidden almost kind of at the bottom here is to stability. Improved desync handling to only remove the desynced player, allowing the match to continue. So previously, players could kind of forcefully desync, cause the game to end. This would be referred to as drop hacking. So now that should no longer be possible, to my understanding, reading this. So that's really good. There's an issue that plagued COH2 and COH3, especially players, maybe if they'd started to lose, they would force these desyncs. So now only the player who's desyncing is going to get disconnected. That's a very, very, very good change. And they made a few little tweaks here to various things related to cosmetics. So overall, there are some really nice changes in this patch, especially if you're into single player, the audio tweaks, changes to planes, changes to the campaigns. Comp Stomp's got that new bridge map. But for those of us who are into multiplayer, this is a bit of a letdown. We knew what was coming, but still, it's quite sad. The last balance patch was, I think, like late April, 20th of April or thereabouts. And they said in the July patch, there's going to be balance changes. I think 2 new maps, one for 3v3, one for 4v4. So that's something to look forward to. But in the meantime, man, that 10 to 12-ish weeks between balance patches, it's agonizing. It just feels like such a slow rate of change when there's just so much to do. It's, like the multiplayer numbers have been diving off quite sharply. And I worry that, you know, at this very slow rate of change, it's going to continue in that fashion. Like, we need a lot more maps than just 2 more in this course of, like, since the game launched. Let's just say 3 new maps for multiplayer since the game launched, going from February to July. That is just way too slow of an addition. Until you've got like about 8 maps at each, you know, 1v1, 2v2, 3v3, 4v4. Until you've got around 8 maps in each mode, the map accumulation needs to be way faster than this. It needs to be like 2 maps per month. Like, you know, get some community maps in there. I know there's something's going on there that's slowing things down, but new maps are just imperative at this stage. And yeah, same story for balance. Waiting 3 months between balance patches when there's still so much to do, it's really slow. You know, the balance feels like it's completely figured out 3 weeks after a patch, like fully figured out. Like, it gets figured out a week later, but fully developed 3 weeks later. And then you're left for another 2 months just playing against like Easy 8 call-ins and OP MG42s, and it's very slow. So yeah, we know, you know, they've committed to more communication. Like, I think every 2 weeks there's going to be a communication update going forwards, and they're trying to restructure things after the layoffs and trying to improve the processes and be more communicative, and that's appreciated. But yeah, I'd like to see a faster rate of change in both multiplayer balance, even if it's not like a huge list of multiplayer balance changes. If it's just like, you know, a quarter of what they're going to release in July, is drip feed it in to just keep the game feeling fresh. That would be really nice, like once a month kind of balance updates or something like that. And yeah, adding more maps. Yeah, it's a bit of a rant at the end, but yeah, I really would like to see a faster rate of change. But, you know, I know a lot of this stuff will take quite a lot of time to do, like a lot of these audio changes, maybe reworking, doing all the stability stuff, whatever. But, you know, tweaking some values in the mod tools or whatever for attack damage or whatever, like manpower costs of things, you can do that very quickly. So I don't see why it needs to take so long between balance patches, is what I'm basically trying to say at this early stage in the game's history. Yeah, there we go. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll catch you in the next one. And if you enjoyed this video, I hope you consider coming on board as a Patreon backer.